More of the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. Time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios is 5:17. I love my next guest, and he does a tremendous job most of the time at the NFL Network, a really good football analyst, and he tells you football the way the players talk it. He does such a good job giving you that perspective, and that's my good friend Heath Evans from the NFL Network. Heath, how are you, brother?
I'm good, buddy. I'm glad football season is back, but spoken like a true veteran. I'm done with preseason. I'm ready for week one. we'll grin and bear it for another 3 weeks.
Hey, I'll be at the Eagles tomorrow, and I'm sure a lot of those veterans probably want to move on. How tough is that for some of those veterans that have been through this time after time, and it's hot, it's like 100 degrees here in Philly and Jersey, and you just want to move on and get ready for the season, right?
And now I'm going to sound like a real old veteran because these dudes got it so easy. I mean, I remember my rookie year with Mike Holmgren. We had 15 straight days of double days and full pads, and then you mix in the special teams like sprint practices. They're like conditioning track meets for special teams. And, you know, Willie McGinnis and I at the network were talking the other day that, like, you literally throughout camp, you never have the pads on twice in one day. You have the pads in the morning or in the afternoon, and then a walkthrough either in the morning or afternoon. And so to have your body not be so beat up already by week one, I think is an added benefit some ways. I'm not sure these guys' body are physically ready to take the beating because you have to kind of get your body ready to take that type of beating. So it's a double-edged sword, but man, I'm telling you, if practice was like this, I might have been able to buy 12 or 13 years instead of 10.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people, when the Eagles were having all these injuries happen in training camp, I wasn't one of them because I liked the way that Doug did adapt, and that was something Chip Kelly never did. He didn't adapt about anything in Philadelphia. He realized the pulse of his team, and he stopped that aggressive approach, and he changed to no more tackling to the ground for the rest of camp. But it was amazing how people were getting on Doug Peterson for his aggressive approach, which you really don't see anymore in the National Football League in these training camps.
Well, you need a tough team, and Doug knows that. Andy knows it. Andy grew up under, the Mike Holmgren tree. We had a live period of practice every single day with Mike Holmgren for my 4 years. Bill Belichick was the same way. Listen, I'm not one of the players that think you don't need live tackling in practice. You know, a lot of guys, Eric Davis and I argue over this all the time. Tackling and blocking are want to, and I agree with Eric on that. But I just think that you've got to hit to get ready for hitting. Like, no one's just going to throw a boxer in the ring and expect him to be able to handle the hits that he takes to the body and the head if he hasn't taken them. I don't care how talented you are. So it's a double-edged sword again. You've got to find a way to balance health with getting your team ready to play week one because it's going to be here before we know it.
I have to say this to you because I love you, and you're always great when you come on the show, and we become really good friends over the years, and you get me when I go to New Orleans into some of the finest restaurants, Irene's. I love going to that place, so I owe you big time. But I look at this Eagles team, and I don't get what you're seeing. 11 wins, you picked them? How the heck are they going to get 11 wins? I don't see it.
Well, I mean, let's take a step back for a second. This was pre-Lane Johnson, but I still think you look at the teams and how they're built in like what wins championships. So last year you had this tough bad boy defensive line for Denver, and it was honestly enough to get them a Super Bowl ring. A couple years removed, it was Seattle. Their offensive line was far better at the time. Tough defensive line, tough O-line, not a lot of wide receiver weapons. You have Russell Wilson, obviously, gives you a different threat, and then the defense were a bunch of bad boys. Look at the Patriots Super Bowl team. A defensive play won it. A tough defensive line, big tough guys up front, big tough guys on the offensive line. What's the Eagles team built on? I mean, this is the best defensive line in football. You add Jim Schwartz to the mix. You have stud athletes on every single level of the defense, back end, linebacker level, and then the D-line is just ridiculous. Then you look at the offensive line for this squad. I mean, if I was sitting down having a conversation with any three of my head coaches in this league, from Mike Holmgren to Bill Belichick or Sean Payton, and said, hey, do you want Jason Peters, Travis Kelce, Brandon Brooks, and then Lane Johnson? They would jump all like, yes, please. How fast can I sign up, and how many times do I have to sign, and how much do I have to pay? And then you look at Sam Bradford, who everything great that he is gifted to do, and I say great, and I don't take it back. People always question on Twitter, what has he done great? People don't look at things the way I look at them. I look at it, what is this guy's vision? What's his arm and accuracy? Everything that Chip tried to strip away from Sam based on the offense of hurry up and just run whatever, Sam's football intelligence is off the charts. So now when Doug gives him 10, 12, 8 seconds, whatever it is, to digest the defense pre-snap, get him out of a bad play instead of just running some bogus play that was called from the sideline, Sam's going to be a much better quarterback. And despite all that nonsense last year, Sam's tape, November, December, the offensive line was worse, the defense was worse, everything was worse, the run game was worse, and Sam's tape got better and better and better and better, despite all the drops and everything else. So you can get away with, I guess, wide receivers that lack experience. I mean, I'm not a huge Jordan Matthews fan, but he's shown us enough. Nelson's going to come along. Listen, there's plenty of players to make plays when you can run the ball. So if Ryan Matthews is healthy and you can be a physical downhill north and south run team, it is a big if. But you still got Sproulsy, and you'll have – listen, if your O-line is that good, there was plenty of times where I was nowhere near an elite tailback in this league. But there was plenty of times where Corey Dillon got hurt or Kevin Falk or one of our guys, and I'd go in and average 4.5 yards a game for 2 games and buy us a spell in New England with an offensive line that I would say is not as talented as the one that you guys have. Hopefully Lane will find a way out of this suspension, and you guys have those 4 monsters up front. The left guard position, it's easy to cover up. And that's not saying that Allen can't get it done. It's just listen, you have 4 studs up there. So I see a lot of potential. And the Philly fans are getting ready to fall in love with Jim Schwartz. We'll look at this.
There's no question. Defensively, there's no question. This team is going to be unbelievable defensively, I think. The only concern I have on defense is the discipline, because you didn't see a lot of disciplined teams in Detroit. But offensively, I just think this team is so bad offensively. And with Jason Peters, I'm not confident that he could last the full 16 anymore. Lane Johnson even said the other day he thinks he's going to serve this 10-game suspension. He probably will. And with that, you look at the quarterback, Sam Bradford. What's been his biggest problem? Staying healthy. How is he going to stay healthy if you're missing Peters and Lane Johnson?
Well, I would argue in Jason's defense that if you look at his tape in September, October, he played as good a football as anybody at left tackle. And then when you get run in the ground every day at practice and Chip wants to give you a smoothie and going to make your legs feel better, it's nonsense. Late in the year, between, I think, fatigue, not because of age or lack of ability, just because of the way Chip did things. You talked about his inability to adapt. When you're 30 plus, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And so I think Philly fans will see a much better version of Jason Peters this year. I think they'll see one that's consistent for 16 games. And I also think you have a head coach now, very much like Andy Reid, that knows how to take care of players. And guess what? Jason doesn't need to be practicing 3 days a week for 17 weeks. Jason, honestly, could practice on Friday for me, and I'd be okay with that. I'd freshen his legs up. I'd make him feel welcomed. I'd make him feel loved on. I'd make him feel appreciated for everything he's done for Philly. Make sure that he knows his mental responsibilities, and then let this monster go out and do what he does. And I'm not going to try to pull off 80 plays in a freaking game because it's pointless and stupid.
You really do hate Chip. I hated Chip.
No, you know what I hate? You know what I hate?
Yeah.
I hate owners. I hate owners that have bad people in their ears, that give them bad advice, that have no business giving anyone football advice. And then someone like the Niners, they steal a head coaching job from far more qualified candidates. And then some of my good friends like Navarro Bowman and some of the other studs and stars on that team are going to get run in the ground, taken advantage of, abused and beat down because of foolish football intuition. Everything's on tape of who and what Chip Kelly is for 3 years. And then you're going to go hire him out there. Navarro Bowman, who had to fight, kick, scratch, and crawl last year to keep his knee healthy, to put on the dominant performance that he did every single week. He was on the field 34 minutes a game last year. Y'all's defense was far more talented and better positioned to have success, and you guys were tied with them for the time that was spent on the field defensively. How much time is Navarro Bowman going to spend on the field this year? It's going to be 40 minutes.
Yep, you're exactly
right. And then so my boy, who's arguably one of the best linebackers in the league, gets screwed over by management and ownership because they don't know what the heck they're doing, because they couldn't get along with Jim Harbaugh, who was a dominant football coach. You might not like him, but even that, move on from Jim, move on from Tom Sula, give some of these other guys that are qualified football minds in this business to run your organization, swallow your pride, Trent Baalke and Jed York, get the heck out of the way, and then let a real football mind try to turn around the Niners and get it back to the dominant performance that you're used to out of the Niners organization. So, yeah, I don't like fool's gold, and I don't like stupid decision-making. And Bill Bill Belichick taught me that, and so did Sean Payton.
So you have no confidence that Chip Kelly's going to adapt. What do you think it would take one day for him to adapt? Because you're right, it was the same thing.
He doesn't have the capable ability. He is not a genius.
So it'll never happen. He'll never adapt.
It's the most limited playbook in the world. Like, we could even say his red zone design tells me everything.
Oh, it's awful. It's so bad. It's the same thing.
Short yardage is probably one of the more difficult coaching jobs to do in this league. Red zone is the most difficult. And those two things he is atrocious at. And so people got enamored last night with, 50 plays in the first half and 300 yards. What they do in the first three drives, or first two drives really, when they were actually playing some of the Texans starters, minus Cushing, minus JJ, minus Clowney. So, listen, you take away arguably your three best players on defense, and they had, 50 yards and two drives, an atrocious 3-and-out. It's frustrating to me. There's too many good coaches in this league that deserve opportunities. I mean, Ray Horton. I mean, give me a frickin' break. He's back being in D.C. now in Cleveland, but why not give him that job? He would have had that defense turned around in no time. He'd find a way to run the ball and be dominant on offense, and then they'd find a way to compete in that division. But no, instead, let's give it to Chip Kelly, who, listen, anybody could beat the bad teams in this league. It just, Zach, you got me fired up. It's my day off.
I love it.
I got to calm down.
See, I follow you on Snapchat, and you get all fired up in the gym. I think you're more fired up now than any time in the gym ever.
Well, it was leg day today. So still not a lot of testosterone left in me right now. It was all Zap doing squats and everything else.
And your Snapchat is so funny because you go 1 second from being in the gym, and the next second you're with your family where you're this nice, lovely guy, and I usually see you being a macho man. I love that stuff.
And then wrestling with the dogs and everything else. So, yeah, if you like pit bulls and Samoyeds, follow me on Snapchat.
Heath Evans joins us from the NFL Network, and I agree with everything you had to say about Chip Kelly. Let's get back to Lane Johnson. $35 guaranteed million on the line, and this knucklehead screwed it up. And then he takes no accountability the other day and just blasts the Players Association. Reaction to Lane Johnson being a fool.
Well, I didn't even see that. I just listen. I watch game tape, and that's about it. And I think people fault me for not paying better attention to some of that news, which I probably should. But listen, our rules are very simple. You got to know what goes in your body. I don't know what he took. I always wish the league would release. You know, when these guys are doing recreational drugs, I want to know if they're snorting crack or if they're smoking weed. When they get popped for the enhancement drugs, I want to know if it was Adderall, if it was steroids, because there is a difference. And I think there's a level of respect that, listen, if you're taking Adderall or if you're taking something, it is what it is. Okay, should we give them grace and mercy? No. But if guys are putting stuff in their veins that they shouldn't be to create an advantage, no one in the league likes that. And I stand by, there's very few guys in our league cheating the system. Our drug testing ability, it's super random. If you're going to beat the system, you're probably paying some chemist, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to help you beat the NFL system. We have a clean league in that regard. So I don't know what Lane was doing. I know it hurt this team, and I know that last year when he had to flip over to left tackle, it was impressive. Him at right tackle and Jason and Kelsey and Brooks, we've already talked about. I was excited about. It's just sad for the team because he's a big piece that is going to be missing, obviously.
$35 million. If that was on the line for me, I'm double, triple, quadruple checking to make sure the supplement I'm taking is right to go in my body. You're a player. I'm sure you've taken a supplement before. How do you ensure that it's okay and it is legal?
There's a hotline. There's an 800 number.
There's an
call.
app too, right?
Listen, I was retired in 2011 before the app world kind of really started. But the thing is, you just call the hotline. You read the label to them, and sometimes they'll be vague with you on the hotline. Like, hey, listen, we can say absolutely yes, you can take that, and then other times be careful with this, but there's nothing in there that we think will pop. But they warn you. You know, the league has done everything, whether it's to drive home drunk from the club or put something in your system that you don't need to be taking. The league has helped players across the board make wise decisions. So when they make stupid decisions, it's on them.
I thought this team, before the Lane Johnson news, you could make the argument that they could compete for the NFC East because it's not a great division. With this Lane Johnson news, and if it upholds, I think this is a team, and I know we disagree on this, I think this is a team that turns out to be a 6-7 win team, and I'm sure the Browns fans would be happy with getting that draft pick from Philadelphia. But the tough part about this is it really does screw up the Eagles' plan this year because you have Sam Bradford. The ideal world, you want to flip something at the end of the year for Sam Bradford. Well, if you don't have Lane Johnson, that's not great protection, in my opinion, for Sam Bradford. And then if you eventually have to put in Carson Wentz, who suffered the hairline fracture in the first preseason game, you don't want to throw him out without maybe you miss both Peters and Johnson sometime this year. If you're Lane Johnson, you test positive for this, what do you say to your teammates because you let them down as well?
That's a tough conversation because there's not going to be a lot of guys that respect the decision-making there, you know. I don't know. I just know this. When you lose one offensive lineman, you know, coaching becomes more of a premium. I mean, people get mad, but you look at the Patriots last year. They lost 4 starters. They were in the AFC Championship game with 1 starter on the offensive line and almost won. So coaching is a premium. There's at a premium at this league. We'll see what Doug's staff has to offer. But you still have 3 stars, like studs, on that line. And so that's honestly, that's 2 more than most and 1 more than many, you know. So Sam Bradford, Chip signed him based on the odds of how many times he had been hurt mathematically. It said, hey, he's not going to have a serious injury again. He was predominantly healthy last year. I think in a Doug Peterson / Andy Reid managed system, Sam's going to surprise people. And truth be told, if this team plays the way it's capable of, they're going to have a major issue on the end of on their hands at the end of the year when Sam has maybe earned a Pro Bowl spot, and then you put all this investment into a young quarterback that's still untested, and you're like, well, we've got to get Carson on the field, but yet we have this proven Pro Bowler on our hands, and so now what do we do? So that'll be a good problem to have. There'll be value for one of them, but again, you know, take Lane out of the mix. The coaching staff should be able to overcome this, and as you mentioned, especially in the division.
We're talking to Heath Evans from the NFL Network. I got one more on this Lane Johnson thing. So Jeff McClain was at practice today, and he said in a tweet, Lane Johnson said he found out about the failed test on July 30th. He said he told the guys upstairs that day. Doug Peterson said he found out last week, so that doesn't add up with the math. You would think that on 7:30, Heath, that Doug Peterson would be informed about this, but Doug Peterson said the other week that wasn't the case when he found out last week, and we've seen him not communicate with Nelson Aguilar when he had his incident earlier on in the year. Is there a communication problem here with the Eagles? Because that's alarming to me. And I don't hate Doug Peterson, but I don't love him either.
Well, I don't know, honestly, because I don't know the rules. I always thought the league, you know, initiated the contact with the player and the coaching staff and informed the organization. So I try not to get into all that soap opera stuff. Mm-hmm. I'll judge a coach by what I see on tape. But listen, to be honest with you, I mean, probably 25 teams in our league have communication issues. You listen to the stupid comments these rookies make about, you know, so-and-so is the best slot receiver in the game. You're a stupid rookie. How do you know who's the best slot receiver in the game? You talk to these O-linemen about, oh, this has been a battle and war in the trenches every day. I'm like, these coaches need to tell these young players to shut up, go to work, you know, and do things right. But, again, people hate on the Pats and who else? Baltimore plays it close to the vest. Green Bay plays it close to the vest. I mean, we all get mad at them in the media because they don't relinquish information. Well, they control the narrative. They control what's coming out of there. And then, therefore, their players are kind of fall in line with the coaches and the management's communication line. And that's the way it should be. And you wonder why those organizations are cream of the crop year in and year out. You can look at Mike Zimmer and the way he shut down the communication that comes out of Minnesota since he's got there. It's really the same thing. So when you let players have too much freedom talking to the media and too many coaches that aren't the head coach, it's too many lines of communication. It just creates disorder, and dysfunction, honestly, across the board.
It's unfortunate to see the Wentz injury news, but do you think Carson Wentz can be that franchise quarterback?
I do. You know, listen, I mean, if we're talking about him or Goff, I mean, I still think he was the better choice. And the thing is, I mean, the report said that the guy was kind of laughing and joking around after the game. Zach, I've had enough rib injuries to know that if you're even like slightly dinged up in the rib area, you're not laughing, you're not breathing heavy, you're definitely not making any quick or sudden moves. And I think it is one of those things you protect, hopefully, what's your future franchise quarterback. He'll probably miss a couple of days. I'm sure he'll be fine. But he's got a red jersey on in practice anyway, so ribs are just a pain tolerance deal. Let the thing scar down, get him back out to practice in a day or two. get his reps going, and he'll be fine.
Let me ask you this, because you're talking about laughing and that stuff. Clearly, what Carson Wentz, wasn't doing with that injury. But with one thing I laugh at right now are some of these guys, and I saw LaDainian Tomlinson said this, that he thinks the Jets are going to win the AFC East. Let's touch on that. Do the Jets have any shot of winning the AFC East this year?
I mean, what they do last year, Week 17 versus Buffalo?
Choked.
They had everything in their hands, and they couldn't get it done. And the Jets fans were so mad at me, I called it in advance. And it is what it is. I mean, Buffalo was a disappointment last year, undisciplined. It drove me nuts because they had such a talented team, and they just couldn't get it done. But, I mean, listen, Brandon Marshall is a great friend. He's the machine for a reason. He's going to put up 1,000 yards no matter what. Will this defense be really good? Yes. Will it probably get better than last year? Yes. Do you beat Tom Brady blitzing the way Todd Bowles has a tendency to do versus him? No. Do you beat Tom Brady by playing coverage? No. It has to be a Rex Ryan mixture. No one really has that immediate success against him other than you can go look at Rex, and then you can go to Dean Pease in Baltimore. Those are the only two coaches that have had consistent success against Brady. So until Rex can get his teams to win more than 12 games to catch up with Brady and the boys, no one's winning that division other than you know who. And if they go 2-2, heck, they could go 1-3. Nobody wants to see 12 when he gets back, I promise you.
No, he's gonna be on fire. He may win the MVP when he comes back. I think he's gonna be so
weeks.
Good. Before we let you run, Heath Evans from the NFL Network joins us. So we talked a little bit about the Jets. Let's get the other local team in, the Giants. I think they're winning the NFC East this year. How good of a season do you think the Giants will have?
I don't know, buddy. I mean, listen, you guys know the dream team of 2011. Remember that?
Disaster.
You spend all this money and you bring in all these different personalities and these big name players, and yeah, but you still got to blend them together, and you still have to coach, and your expectations get so high that sometimes you let down. You've got a new head coach, and we don't really know what Ben is. Okay, we've seen this offense get better numbers-wise in the last couple of years, but if you look at him versus good defenses, that's when Eli plays at his worst. And so there's this somewhat similar effect to what Chip did. Chip beat up on all the bad defense and then couldn't do crap versus the good defenses. So you have this number one offense and all this yards and all this foo-foo stuff that really, at the end of the day, doesn't matter. So now you take Ben away from strictly 100% offense and split his duties across the team, special teams, defense, offense. Eli doesn't get as much of attention. The game plan doesn't get as much of attention on the offensive side of the ball. All these different things, and then you're trying to blend together $200 million of defensive talent. So I mean, listen, we know what Vernon and Harrison are capable of, and it is what it is. But I know this: Schwartz's defense is not easy. There's an adjustment for every adjustment, and so if the back end and the linebackers aren't, like I'm talking about, superior in the intelligence department, they will struggle. Unless the defensive line is getting home in a second and a half, which maybe they will, I doubt they'll be able to do that consistently every week. So, and then offensively, we'll see what they got. I mean, Eli's Eli. He can be one of the best, and then he can be one of the worst, in 2 weeks.
Over under 5.5 wins for the 49ers this year.
I'd have to go back and look at their schedule. I think I gave them 3 or 4. I mean, if Colin is healthy, Colin, poor guy, he looks so skinny right now. If Colin's healthy, go back 2 years removed where he's, 225 pounds of ripped muscle. I mean, Chip's he'll screw around with 7, 8 poorly disciplined defenses and get wins. But in that division, I mean, you see him beating the Cardinals, you see him beating Seattle, you even see him beating the Rams. That might be 6 losses right there. So, hold
on real quickly. Let me just give you the schedule right now, and then I'll let you run and enjoy your off day. We'll take it through game by game. I feel like I'm hosting the NFL Network now. All right. Game number 1, ESPN, September 12th, Rams. That is home for them.
No, that's a loss.
At Carolina the next week.
That's a loss.
At Seattle.
That's a loss.
Home against Dallas.
If Tony's still healthy, they'll get beat by 20.
Home against Arizona.
Loss.
At Buffalo.
They can win that one. Buffalo's so undisciplined at times. Who knows? He could beat them.
Home against Tampa Bay.
Give them that W, maybe. I doubt it, though. Jameis is going to be a different player this year.
Okay. Then they have a bye. Your Saints.
They'll win. They'll find a way to lose the bye.
Your Saints. They play the Saints after the bye.
Yeah, that's in San Francisco, right?
Yep.
Yeah, listen, the Saints are going to be a better football team this year. Give them the Saints.
I think I could bypass at Arizona and then home against the Pats, correct?
Yeah, those are 2 L's.
Okay, at Miami.
That's probably a loss.
At Chicago.
He's probably lost the team by this point.
At Chicago.
I mean, if everything was equal, I'm not sold on Chicago. He could probably win that game.
All right, so you have possibly 3 wins right there. We got 4 more games left. The Jets, that's a home game for them.
That's a loss.
At Atlanta.
That's a loss.
At Los Angeles, no longer St. Louis. Los Angeles, at Los Angeles.
Probably playing for nothing. Either team will give him a win, so he gets 4 wins.
Okay, and then they wrap it up home against Seattle.
Yeah, that's a loss.
I love it. I can't wait to see Chip Kelly be a disaster this year, Heath. I just can't wait. I hated the guy so much here in Philadelphia.
Well, I don't hate the guy. I just don't like people that refuse to change and refuse to look around and gather information on how they can get better. I just don't think he has it in him. I think he's more worried about proving that his system, calling stuff from the sidelines, can work versus doing what's best for his ownership, the organization, and his boys and his team.
Heath Evans, you're the best. This is why I defend you here in Philadelphia. For the last 4 years I lived here, and people have said a lot of bad words about you, but I always defend my guy, Heath Evans. You're the best, my friend.
Well, they all like me now on Twitter. I've made a bunch of friends in Philly, so it's all good.
Who would have thought? I guess miracles do happen. Heath, thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, buddy. See you.
There he is, Heath Evans. Oh, best guest ever, Heath Evans. That's why I love putting him on. We got him fired up about Chip Kelly. Wow, it's already 5:43 here in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. Zach Gelb Show, 609-919-9200. We'll take a quick break. We'll wrap things up on the other side.